Well, I'm the sixth of 6 speakers, so I really set myself up here. But I can do hard things. I'm also wearing heels for the first time since 2020, so here I am. My name's Jess Tomlin, and I have the great privilege of being the CEO of the Equality Fund. For those who don't know what the Equality Fund is, I hope you walk out of here today feeling a little more proud. 4 years ago, the Government of Canada made a signature investment in feminist and human rights movements around the world by making a signature one-time contribution of $300 million, the largest investment ever in the history of time by any government into the work of human rights. So just that, I mean, we've been at it for 4 years, and in the last 4 years, we have used that money to leverage and unlock and build new partnerships so that we can move $1 billion into the hands of human rights movements. We're 4 years in, and I'm very proud to say that we have moved $100 million to 1,000 organizations in 100 countries, and we're just getting started. You're a really friendly crowd. I feel very supported up here, I have to say. We seek to do 2 things. We seek to move abundant, scaled, flexible, as we've heard my fellow speakers speak to, resources into the hands of the leaders who are most proximate to the issues. And we also seek to do that over time, recognizing that we can't change hearts and minds, and we can't give every person on this planet the fundamental human rights that they deserve in the context of a project cycle. This is a lifetime's worth of work. It's hard to talk about movements, and it's hard to join up with them philanthropically because they're amorphous. They're interconnected, they work across systems, they're both individual and systemic. And fundamentally, they are working at local levels and global levels, and it's really hard as a philanthropic partner to know how to do that work, but it is possible, and we've seen some examples before me around how you do that. But what movements do is play the long game. They recognize that it's a marathon, not a sprint, and they work to fundamentally shift the norms, attitudes, beliefs, behaviors, laws, systems, policies that hold so many people back. And it's a lifetime's worth of work. If you need examples, I can give you a few. The 1,400 institutions in the last 5 years that have moved over $40 trillion from the fossil industry. The recently announced same-sex legislation in Thailand, that is the work of movements, are the incredible gains made in Argentina and Colombia and Mexico enshrining abortion in the Constitution. That is the work of movements, and it is the work of lifetimes. But here's the thing. Progressive movements and their philanthropic partners are being outpaced and outspent by billions of dollars each year. US Christian right fundamentalists are funding anti-abortion care in Kenya. Russian think tanks fueled by oligarchs are upending democracies all over the world. Strategic anti-rights actors are cultivating relationships with climate denialists, religious fundamentalists, and right-leaning politicians. And here's the rub. This work that's happening, and it is movement work, to be very clear, is well organized. It's well funded. $7 billion alone has moved into the anti-rights movement in the last several years. It's like the difference between a blazing, indiscriminate wildfire and a well-disciplined river. The river is how we're funding human rights movements right now. It's well contained. There's quarterly financial reports. There's excellent narrative arc. We're working in 5-year project cycles. And yet we're up against this incredible challenge, which is like a wildfire. It's indiscriminate. It hops over the river. It eats the shrub. It's why there were 600 anti-trans bills in 2023 in the US alone. Outpaced and outspent. So how do we go from here? How do we tackle this moment in polycrisis where we've got Iran and Israel and Gaza and you name it on our minds and on our hearts, and it's moving, and the pace of change feels unsustainable? Well, we heard about capital. We're talking about financial capital. I fundamentally believe that the women's movement alone could absorb $3 billion tomorrow. But what it's going to take for all of us is to think about the other forms of capital that we can bring to the table. What does it mean to invest philanthropically in this work is one question. But what does it mean to be all in? To roll up our sleeves and to think about the social capital and the political capital? My dear friend Tanisha McHarris, who runs the Black Feminist Fund, which is a global fund that invests in Black women leaders across the planet, she asks this question, and she asks it a lot. She says, what would need to change if you funded us like you wanted us to win? How would your behavior change? I sit with that one a lot. The definition of philanthropy, and we heard it tonight, is the love of humanity. You're going to hear love a lot. It's also using your time and your treasure and your talent in service of the causes and the issues that you care about. As we move forward in this country and as we strive to shift power, we need to fund folks like we want them to win. We need to ask ourselves, what are all the forms of generosity that I can bring to this effort? And we need to be patient with our philanthropy. This is a lifetime's worth of work. And perhaps the hardest thing for us in this room is to recognize that the change we are all now so deeply invested in, right? We're going to walk out the door, we're deeply invested in this work, we're all agreed. This change that we're all so deeply invested in may actually not be realized in our lifetime. That, in fact, is the love of humanity. That's philanthropy. Thank you.